The galaxy stretched endlessly, vast and unforgiving, but there was one part of it that even the bravest avoided. Sector 42, a region known for its lawlessness and danger, was home to some of the most feared individuals in the universe, the Deathworlders. These mercenaries were not ordinary soldiers or explorers. They were survivors, people who had been hardened by life on the harshest planets imaginable. They didn't care about politics, alliances, or morality. Their only rule was simple: survive at all costs. On an asteroid base floating deep within Sector 42, Jason Cole sat alone in the dim light of his quarters. He was sharpening a long knife, the metallic scrape echoing softly in the quiet room. Across the hall, Maria Lopes worked tirelessly on her plasma rifle, disassembling and reassembling it with practiced ease. Both of them knew better than to let their guard down, even here, where they thought they were safe. The Deathworlders might have been legends, but legends could still die. Their leader, Ethan Hayes, stood near the communications console in the main chamber. Tall and lean, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing, Ethan exuded authority without ever raising his voice. He rarely spoke unless necessary, and when he did, everyone listened. Right now, though, he wasn't speaking. He was staring at the blinking red light on the console, a signal coming through from somewhere far away. Ethan pressed a button, and static filled the air, before resolving into a strange, guttural voice. It wasn't human. The words came out broken and distorted, translated awkwardly into Galactic Standard. "This is Commander Zixra of the Vornith Empire," the voice said. "Your presence is required. Refusal will result in your destruction." Maria stopped tinkering with her rifle and looked up. Jason paused mid-stroke, his knife hovering over the whetstone. Even the other members of the team, scattered throughout the base, seemed to feel the tension in the air. No one moved. Everyone waited for Ethan's reaction. Ethan didn't flinch. His expression remained calm, almost bored. But those who knew him well could see the flicker of calculation behind his eyes. The Vornith Empire wasn't just another faction trying to make a name for itself. They were powerful, ruthless, and technologically advanced. If they wanted something, they usually took it, and crushed anyone who got in their way. "Do we know what they want?" Jason asked finally, breaking the silence. His voice was low, steady, but there was an edge to it. "No," Ethan replied, "but we're going to find out." He turned and walked toward the door, signaling for the others to follow. One by one, the rest of the team gathered in the main chamber. There was Daniel Harris, the medic with a dry sense of humor; Rachel Morales, the sniper whose aim never missed; Kevin Shaw, the demolitions expert with a love for chaos; and Sarah Bennett, the pilot who could fly anything with wings or thrusters. Ethan addressed them directly, his tone firm but calm. "We've been summoned by the Vornith. They gave us no details, only a demand. Show up or be destroyed. We don't negotiate with aliens, and we don't take orders from anyone. But this isn't about pride. It's about survival." The room fell silent again as the weight of his words sank in. None of them trusted aliens, especially ones issuing ultimatums. Still, they understood the reality of their situation. If they refused, the Vornith wouldn't hesitate to wipe them out. And if there was one thing the Deathworlders hated more than betrayal, it was dying without a fight. "We'll hear them out," Ethan concluded. "But remember this: we go in prepared, and we leave alive. That's the only plan that matters." With reluctant nods, the team dispersed to prepare for the journey ahead. None of them knew what awaited them, but one thing was certain: whatever it was, it wouldn't be easy. The Deathworlders moved quickly, each member of the team focused on their role. Jason Cole packed extra blades and ammunition into a worn duffel bag, his movements precise and deliberate. Maria Lopes double-checked her plasma rifle, ensuring every component was in perfect condition. She didn't trust technology unless she personally inspected it, and this mission felt too important to leave anything to chance. Ethan Hayes stood at the center of the activity, watching silently as his team prepared. He trusted them, all of them, But he also knew that trust could only take you so far. What mattered now was preparation. If the Vornith Empire had called them, it meant trouble. And if there was one thing Ethan understood, it was how to handle trouble. "We're taking the Iron Wraith Asterisk," Ethan announced, referring to their heavily modified ship. It wasn't sleek or shiny like the vessels used by corporate fleets, but it was fast, durable, and armed to the teeth. The Iron Wraith Asterisk had gotten them out of more tight spots than anyone cared to count, and today wouldn't be any different. Sarah Bennett, the pilot, gave a quick nod. "I'll prep the engines," she said, already heading toward the hangar. Her calm demeanor masked a fierce determination. Sarah had been flying since she was a teenager, and no one doubted her ability to navigate even the most dangerous corners of space. Kevin Shaw, the demolitions expert, grinned as he strapped grenades onto his belt. "Finally, some action," he muttered under his breath. Explosions were his specialty, and he thrived on chaos. While others might have found his enthusiasm unsettling, Ethan appreciated Kevin's confidence. In a fight, hesitation could get you killed. Rachel Morels, the sniper, stayed quiet as she loaded her rifle with care. Her nickname, Ghost, came from her ability to disappear into the shadows and strike without warning. She didn't say much, but when she spoke, people listened. Right now, though, she was focused on making sure her weapon was ready for whatever lay ahead. Daniel Harris, the medic, adjusted the straps on his medical kit. Unlike the others, his job wasn't about killing. It was about keeping them alive. His dry sense of humor often lightened the mood, but today he kept his jokes to himself. Something about this mission felt off. Once everyone was ready, they boarded the Iron Wraith Asterisk. The ship hummed to life as Sarah powered up the engines, and soon they were hurtling through the void of space. The journey would take hours, maybe even days, depending on where the Vornith wanted to meet them. For now, all they could do was wait and plan. Inside the cramped cabin, tensions simmered below the surface. Kevin leaned back in his seat, tossing a small explosive device into the air and catching it effortlessly. "So, what do you think these aliens want?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Doesn't matter what they want," Ethan replied sharply. "What matters is staying alive. We don't know anything about the Vornith except that they're dangerous. Assume the worst." Maria crossed her arms. "And if they try to double-cross us, then we double-cross them first," Ethan said simply. His tone left no room for argument. Rachel glanced up from cleaning her rifle. "We should stick together," she said quietly. "If we split up, we're dead." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. Stick close, watch each other's backs. That's how we survive." As the hours passed, the team reviewed their gear, shared terse conversations, and tried to ignore the gnawing uncertainty in their stomachs. None of them liked taking orders from aliens, but they had no choice. Refusing the Vornith's call meant certain death, and the Deathworlders weren't about to go down without a fight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're approaching the coordinates," she announced. "Looks like we got company." The team gathered around the viewport, staring out at the massive structure looming ahead. It was a Vornith outpost, jagged and menacing, bristling with weapons and glowing conduits. The sight sent a chill down their spines, but none of them showed it. Fear wasn't an option, not for the galaxy's most dreaded mercenaries. Ethan turned to face his team. "Remember the plan. Stay sharp, stay together, and stay alive." With that, he led the way to the airlock, ready to face whatever awaited them. The Iron Wraith Asterisk docked with a heavy thud against the cold, metallic surface of the Vornith outpost. The team stood in silence for a moment, staring out at the alien structure through the ship's viewport. It was massive and intimidating, its jagged edges glinting under artificial lights that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The airlock hissed open, and a rush of cool, sterile air greeted them as they stepped onto the platform. Ethan Hayes led the way, his boots clicking against the smooth floor. The others followed closely behind, their weapons ready but not drawn. Yet, they moved cautiously, eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. The outpost felt empty, but appearances could be deceiving. Aliens were unpredictable, and the Vornith were no exception. As they walked deeper into the station, the walls seemed to close in around them. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the metallic surfaces, pulsing in rhythm with the hum of machinery. Kevin Shaw muttered under his breath, "This place gives me the creeps." "Stay focused," Ethan said sharply, though he shared the sentiment. Something about the atmosphere made his skin crawl. It wasn't just the alien design, it was the feeling of being watched. Every step echoed unnaturally loud, bouncing off the walls as if the station itself was listening. They'd reached a large chamber at the heart of the outpost. Standing in the center was a towering figure, Commander Zixra of the Vornith Empire. Its body was covered in iridescent scales that shimmered in shades of green and blue, and 6 glowing eyes stared down at them from above a wide, toothy mouth. Beside it stood 2 smaller Vornith guards, their weapons trained on the humans. Zixra spoke through a translator device strapped to its chest. The voice was deep and guttural, each word strained as if speaking Galactic Standard caused it physical pain. "You have come," it said. "Good. Your reputation precedes you, Deathworlders." Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied the alien commander, searching for any sign of deception. Finally, he nodded. "We're here. What do you want?" The alien gestured toward a holographic display hovering in the air. An image flickered to life, a glowing orb surrounded by swirling energy. "This is the Kelfar sphere," Zixra explained. "It contains technology capable of destabilizing entire star systems. It has been stolen. Retrieve it." Maria Lopes frowned. "Why us? You've got an army. Why not send your own people?" "The sphere is hidden on X-97, Zixra replied. "A death world. Few survive its surface. Your kind, you thrive in such places. That is why we summoned you." Kevin let out a low whistle. "Sounds fun," he muttered sarcastically. Rachel Morales shot him a glare, silently warning him to stay quiet. Ethan crossed his arms. "And if we refuse?" The alien commander tilted its head slightly, a gesture that might have been amusement or threat. "Refusal is not an option. If you do not comply, you will be destroyed. Do not mistake this for negotiation." There was no room for argument. Ethan exchanged quick glances with his team. They all understood the stakes. Refusing meant certain death, and even if they somehow survived the Vornith attack, they'd lose their only chance to negotiate safe passage home. Reluctantly, Ethan nodded. "We'll do it." Zixra stepped closer, its massive frame looming over them. "Do not fail. The fate of your species depends on it." With that cryptic warning, the alien turned and left the chamber, leaving the team alone with their thoughts. "Well," Daniel Harris said dryly, breaking the tension, "that went well." Sarah Bennett shook her head. "This feels wrong. Why would aliens trust us with something this important?" "They don't," Ethan replied flatly. "They're using us because we're expendable. But if we succeed, we get paid, and we live. That's enough." Rachel adjusted the strap on her rifle. "Let's hope we don't regret this." With no other choice, the team returned to the Iron Wraith *. As Sarah plotted a course for X-97, the reality of their mission began to sink in. None of them had ever heard of the planet before, but based on the Vornith's description, it wouldn't be easy. Still, they were Deathworlders. Surviving impossible odds was what they did best. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Jason Cole leaned back in his seat and sighed. Here we go again. The journey to X-97 was short but tense. None of the Deathworlders spoke much as the Iron Wraith approached the planet. When they finally entered its atmosphere, the view outside the viewport made even the toughest among them uneasy. The sky was a deep crimson, streaked with black clouds that churned violently. Acidic rain poured down in sheets, hissing as it hit the ship's reinforced hull. Below, the ground looked like a jagged wasteland, dotted with twisted trees and bubbling pools of toxic sludge. "This place is a nightmare," Kevin Shaw muttered, gripping the edge of his seat. "I can't wait to get out there." "Careful what you wish for," Rachel Morel said dryly, her sharp eyes scanning the terrain. She already had her sniper rifle slung over her shoulder, ready for anything, or anyone, that might try to ambush them. Sarah Bennett brought the ship down near a rocky ridge, one of the few stable areas she could find. The landing was rough, but she managed to keep the Iron Wraith upright. As soon as the engines powered down, Ethan Hayes stood and addressed the team. "We don't know what's waiting for us out there. Stay alert, stick together, and remember, we're here to retrieve the sphere, not start a war." With that, they suited up in their protective gear, thick armor designed to withstand extreme conditions, and stepped out onto the surface. The air smelled metallic and burnt, and the constant rain soaked through even their sealed suits within minutes. It wasn't just the weather that made X-97 dangerous. Strange noises echoed in the distance, low growls and screeches that sent chills down their spines. They moved cautiously, sticking close to the ridge for cover. Maria Lopes stayed at the back of the group, her plasma rifle raised. "Keep your eyes peeled," she warned. "Whatever lies here isn't going to welcome us with open arms." Her words proved true sooner than anyone expected. As they rounded a bend, a pack of razor-toothed creatures burst from the shadows. They were fast, their sleek bodies covered in spiky scales, and their glowing yellow eyes locked onto the intruders with predatory intent. Before anyone could react, Kevin pulled the trigger on his flamethrower, unleashing a burst of fire that sent several of the beasts retreating into the darkness. "Nice work," Ethan said, though his tone was clipped. He didn't have time to celebrate small victories. More creatures were circling now, their guttural snarls growing louder. Rachel dropped to one knee, her sniper rifle aimed and steady. One by one, she picked off the approaching predators, each shot precise and deadly. But there were too many. The team formed a defensive circle, firing in all directions as the creatures closed in. "Fall back," Ethan shouted, leading them toward higher ground. The ridge offered some protection, forcing the creatures to attack from fewer angles. Kevin tossed a grenade into the fray, the explosion sending chunks of rock and flesh flying. For a moment, the assault slowed, giving them a chance to regroup. Daniel Harris worked quickly, patching up a gash on Jason Cole's arm where one of the creatures had grazed him. "You'll live," Doc said, though his expression was grim. Medical supplies were limited, and they couldn't afford injuries slowing them down. As the last of the creatures retreated, Ethan turned to his team. "We need to move faster. This planet doesn't play nice, and neither will whoever took the sphere. Let's push forward." No one argued. They knew he was right. With weapons reloaded and nerves steadied, the Deathworlders pressed onward, deeper into the hostile landscape. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of the mission pressing down on them. But they didn't stop. Surviving X-97 meant surviving themselves. And failure wasn't an option. The deeper they ventured into X-97, the more hostile the planet became. The crimson skies darkened further, and the acid rain turned into a relentless downpour that seemed to eat away at everything it touched. Strange, twisted plants oozed toxic fluids, and the ground beneath their boots felt unstable, as if the planet itself was trying to swallow them whole. The team pressed on, their movements cautious but determined. Ethan Hayes led the way, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger or the Kelfar sphere. Maria Lopes walked close behind him, her plasma rifle ready to fire at a moment's notice. "This place is cursed," she muttered under her breath. "Every step feels like we're walking into a trap." Kevin Shaw, still jittery from the earlier fight with the creatures, cracked his knuckles nervously. "Maybe we should have asked those aliens for a map or something," he said, half joking. No one laughed. Humor had no place here. Rachel Morels brought up the rear, her sniper rifle slung over her shoulder. She paused suddenly, her sharp eyes narrowing as she studied the landscape ahead. "Something's wrong," she said quietly. "Do you hear that?" The others froze, listening. At first, there was nothing but the hiss of the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Then came it, a faint buzzing sound, growing louder by the second. It wasn't natural. "Cover," Ethan barked, diving behind a jagged rock formation. The rest of the team followed suit just as a swarm of insect-like drones appeared, hovering above them. Their metallic bodies gleamed in the dim light, and their glowing red sensors scanned the area with mechanical precision. "They're not Vornith tech," Maria said, her voice tight. "Someone else is here." Before anyone could respond, the drones opened fire, sending bursts of energy crackling through the air. The team returned fire, their weapons lighting up the gloomy landscape. Kevin launched a grenade, the explosion taking out several drones at once, but more kept coming. The sheer number of them forced the Deathworlders to retreat further into the ruins. As they ran, Sarah Bennett noticed something strange on her scanner. "There's a structure ahead," she said, pointing toward a crumbling tower in the distance. "It might be where the sphere is hidden." Ethan nodded. "Let's make for it. If we can get inside, we'll have better cover." They fought their way to the tower, blasting through waves of drones until they reached the entrance. Inside, the air was damp and stale, and the walls were covered in alien symbols that glowed faintly. The buzzing outside faded as the heavy doors sealed shut behind them. For a moment, they allowed themselves to catch their breath, but the respite was short-lived. As they moved deeper into the tower, they found evidence of recent activity: discarded ration packs, spent ammunition, and scorch marks on the walls. Someone had been here before them. "Mercenaries," Ethan said grimly. "Rogues hired by someone who doesn't want us to succeed." Kevin frowned. "How did they know we were coming?" No one answered. The implication hung heavy in the air. Betrayal. Someone had tipped off their enemies. Trust within the group began to fray. "We need to focus," Rachel said firmly, breaking the tension. "Whoever they are, they're between us and the sphere. We take them out, then we finish the mission." The team agreed, though uneasily. They pushed forward, navigating narrow corridors and avoiding traps left behind by whoever had come before them. Finally, they'd reached a large chamber at the heart of the tower. There, standing guard over the glowing Kelthar sphere, was a group of heavily armed mercenaries. "Looks like we found our competition," Ethan said, raising his weapon. The mercenaries turned to face them, their expressions cold and calculating. One of them stepped forward, a man with a scar running down his cheek. "You picked the wrong job," he sneered. "Walk away or die." Ethan didn't hesitate. Not an option. With that, the room erupted into chaos. Blasts of energy lit up the chamber as both sides exchanged fire. The Deathworlders fought with everything they had, relying on skill and teamwork to hold their ground. But the mercenaries were well prepared, and the battle quickly turned into a brutal stalemate. In the middle of the firefight, Maria spotted something moving in the shadows, a figure clad in black armor, watching silently. Before she could warn the others, the figure vanished, leaving her uneasy. "Who was that?" she whispered to Ethan. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter right now. Focus on the sphere." But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just fighting mercenaries. Something bigger and far more dangerous was at play. The battle raged on, the chamber filled with the deafening roar of weapons and the acrid smell of burnt metal. The mercenaries fought fiercely, their movements coordinated and precise, as if they had been expecting the Deathworlders all along. Ethan Hayes shouted orders over the chaos, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Kevin, take out their cover. Rachel, pick them off one by one." Kevin Shaw didn't need to be told twice. He pulled a small explosive device from his belt, lit the fuse with a flick of his thumb, and hurled it toward a crumbling pillar where two mercenaries were taking shelter. The explosion sent chunks of stone flying, forcing the enemy to scatter. Rachel Morel is crouched low behind a piece of debris, her sniper rifle steady in her hands. With each pull of the trigger, another mercenary fell, her aim unerring. But for every foe they eliminated, more seemed to appear. The mercenaries kept coming, their numbers overwhelming. Maria Lopes fired her plasma rifle in short, controlled bursts, conserving ammunition while keeping the enemy at bay. Sweat dripped down her face despite the cool air inside the chamber. "We can't keep this up forever," she yelled, her voice strained. "We don't have to," Ethan replied sharply. "Just hold them off long enough to grab the sphere." Jason Cole moved quickly, dodging blasts of energy, as he made his way closer to the glowing artifact. The Kelfar sphere pulsed with an otherworldly light, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. It rested on a pedestal in the center of the room, surrounded by intricate alien machinery that hummed softly. Jason reached out, his gloved hand inches from the sphere, but before he could touch it, a shadowy figure appeared from nowhere. The newcomer was clad head to toe in sleek black armor, their face obscured by a featureless helmet. In one fluid motion, they grabbed Jason by the arm and threw him backward with unnatural strength. Ethan's eyes widened as he recognized the figure. This was the same person Maria had spotted earlier, watching silently from the shadows. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, raising his weapon. The armored figure didn't respond. Instead, they lunged forward with terrifying speed, engaging Ethan in close combat. Their fists struck with incredible force, denting his armor and knocking him back. Kevin tried to intervene, tossing a grenade toward the figure, but they sidestepped it effortlessly, the explosion barely grazing them. Rachel aimed her rifle, but the figure moved too fast, vanishing into the smoke and debris. "I can't get a clean shot," she shouted, frustration evident in her voice. Sarah Bennett stepped forward, holding a compact EMP device she brought just in case. "Maybe this will slow them down," she said, activating the device. A pulse of energy rippled through the chamber, causing the lights to flicker and the machinery around the sphere to sputter. For a brief moment, the figure froze, their movements slowed by the electromagnetic interference. It was all the opening Ethan needed. He tackled the figure to the ground, pinning them down with sheer determination. "Maria," he barked. "Grab the sphere." Maria didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the pedestal, dodging stray blasts and leaping over fallen debris. Her heart pounded as she reached the sphere, wrapping her hands around its smooth, warm surface. As soon as she touched it, the alien machinery began to whir loudly, emitting a high-pitched tone that made everyone wince. The armored figure broke free from Ethan's grip, delivering a final blow that sent him sprawling. But instead of attacking again, they turned and fled, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as they had come. "What was that about?" Kevin asked, breathing heavily as he reloaded his weapon. "No time to think about it," Ethan said, climbing to his feet. "We've got what we came for. Let's move." The team regrouped around Maria, who clutched the sphere tightly. The mercenaries, disoriented by the EMP blast and the sudden retreat of their mysterious ally, began to fall back. The Deathworlders didn't waste the opportunity. They fought their way out of the chamber, blasting through anything that stood in their path. By the time they reached the exit, the tower was beginning to collapse, the ancient structure unable to withstand the strain of the activated machinery. Acid rain poured down as they emerged into the open, battered but alive. Sarah led them back to the Iron Wraith *, her boots splashing through puddles of toxic sludge. As they boarded the ship and powered up the engines, Ethan glanced at the sphere in Maria's hands. Its glow was faint now, almost peaceful. But he knew better than to trust appearances. Whatever they had just taken, it was far more dangerous than any of them realized. "Set course for the Vornith outpost," Ethan ordered. "Let's finish this." No one argued. They were battered, bruised, and running on fumes, but they had survived. For now, that was enough. The journey back to the Vornith outpost was tense and quiet. The Deathworlders sat in the cramped cabin of the Iron Wraith, their bodies aching from the fight on X-97. Maria Lopes held the Kelfar sphere tightly, its faint glow casting eerie shadows on her face. No one spoke much. There wasn't much to say. They had completed their mission, but none of them felt like celebrating. Ethan Hayes stood near the cockpit, staring out at the endless void of space. His mind replayed the events on the planet over and over again. The mercenaries, the mysterious armored figure, the strange machinery humming around the sphere. Something about it all didn't sit right with him. "We're being used," he muttered under his breath, though no one heard him. When they finally arrived at the Vornith outpost, the massive structure loomed ahead of them like a predator waiting to strike. Sarah Bennett guided the ship into the docking bay with practiced ease, but even she couldn't hide the tension in her movements. As the airlock hissed open, the team stepped out onto the platform, weapons ready but not raised. They weren't taking any chances. Commander Zixra was waiting for them in the same chamber where they had first met. The alien's 6 glowing eyes fixed on the sphere in Maria's hands, and for a moment, there was silence. Then Zixra spoke, its voice deep and guttural through the translator device. "You have succeeded. The Kelfar sphere is secure." Maria stepped forward cautiously, holding out the artifact. 2 Vornith guards approached, their weapons trained on the humans as they took the sphere from her. Ethan watched closely, his hand resting on the hilt of his knife. He didn't trust these aliens, not for a second. "What happens now?" Ethan asked, his tone steady but firm. Zixra tilted its head slightly, a gesture that might have been amusement or satisfaction. "Your part is done. You will be compensated as promised. Leave this place and do not return." Kevin Shaw smirked, crossing his arms. "That's it? No big thank you speech? No medal or anything?" Rachel Morels elbowed him sharply in the ribs. "Shut up, Kevin." Ethan ignored the exchange and focused on the alien commander. What about the mercenaries? And the person in black armor? Who were they working for? Zixra's response was cold and dismissive. "That is not your concern. Your survival is reward enough." The team exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected lies and half-truths, but this level of secrecy left them feeling unsettled. Still, they knew better than to push their luck. The Vornith weren't known for their patience. "Let's go," Ethan said quietly, turning toward the exit. The others followed without argument, their footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. As they made their way back to the Iron Wraith, the weight of unanswered questions hung heavy in the air. Back aboard their ship, the crew gathered in the main cabin. Daniel Harris tended to Jason Cole's injuries, while Kevin fiddled with an unexploded grenade, muttering about how close they'd come to disaster. Rachel leaned against the wall, her sniper rifle resting across her lap, her sharp eyes distant and thoughtful. "Well, that was fun," Kevin said sarcastically, breaking the silence. "Can't wait for the next alien death trap." No one laughed. Ethan stood near the viewport, staring out at the stars. "This isn't over," he said finally, his voice low but clear. "Whatever that sphere does, it's dangerous. And we just handed it to the Vornith. That means trouble. For us, for everyone." Sarah frowned, her hands gripping the edge of the pilot's seat. "So what do we do?" "For now, nothing," Ethan replied. "We've done our part, but if things go sideways, and they usually do, we'll need to be ready." The room fell silent again, each member lost in their own thoughts. They had survived another impossible mission, but the cost of survival weighed heavily on them. Trust had been broken, secrets remained hidden, and the galaxy felt more uncertain than ever. As the Iron Wraith jumped into hyperspace, heading toward safer territory, Ethan gave the order to set course for home. For now, they had lived to fight another day. But in a universe full of threats, peace was never guaranteed. The Deathworlders had faced death before, and they would face it again. Until then, they would keep moving, keep fighting, and keep surviving. Because that was who they were.